Never take anything at face value. When it comes to the banking sectors, well, basically don't trust them. There's some pretty big developments going on with some very famous names in the space that are buying Bitcoin, and they are buying aggressively. You may ask yourself the question, why? Well, we're going to try and break it all down for you in this video. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let's dive straight into it. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As always, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. But what is going on in the market? Well, down about 3%, 2.25 trillion is our global market cap. Bitcoin underneath 61,000. A pretty aggressive and sharp decline today. We saw some massive leverage exits as well as some huge selling off. Why? That's the big question. That's what's on everyone's mind. And we talked a little bit about it on my live stream as to exactly what's going on in the market. Now, we know retail isn't coming out, but what's interesting is what's going on in the background. Namely, some pretty big banks are now going big on Bitcoin. That's right. We've got JP Morgan and Wells Fargo ultimately getting into the Bitcoin ETFs. Now, this is a very interesting statement because we know that JP Morgan has been anti-crypto for what feels like forever, even going as far as to say that it has absolutely no use case whatsoever. But don't forget, JP Morgan's been fined hundreds of millions of dollars for inaccuracies, bad bookkeeping, and everything else. But now we find out they've been buying Bitcoin behind the scenes. And Wells Fargo, again, one of those that were absolutely advocate the ETFs, third biggest bank in the US, also buying into Bitcoin. What does it mean for you and what does it mean for the price? Well, let's just take a quick look at what it actually looks like. So you can see here, JP Morgan disclosed $731,246 of spot Bitcoin ETF investments in BlackRock, Bitwise, Fidelity, and Grayscale, with ultimately $477,000 being invested in the IBIT, and Wells Fargo with $141,000, all of which invested in Grayscale's GBTC. Now, the question has to be, is this just a little dip in the toe in the ocean, or is there a bigger player here? Are we going to see JP Morgan start to potentially even list their own potential Bitcoin ETF? Well, I wouldn't absolutely say that that's not a possibility. And it's interesting that $750,000 they already have in these investment portfolios. These are not holding Bitcoin. These are specifically in these ETFs. Now, interestingly, we do know that BlackRock filed a $6.6 million investment in its own IBIT fund with a 13F filing that happened on May 10th. So we know BlackRock is also going big on Bitcoin as well as it is on many other coins, things like Ondo and many, many others. Now, the big question is, when do we get the Ethereum ETFs? Well, they are going to be coming soon. We know they've been delayed a little bit further by the tyrant that is Gary Gensler. However, when we take a look at what's going on with the ETF market, it is an interesting market. Grayscale, once again, dumping. However, lots of buy pressure coming in on the rest of the market. We actually saw another negative outflow, 1.62 thousand, actually down quite significantly from that better day yesterday. So the ETF still a really challenging environment right now. What's super interesting, and I talked a lot about this a number of times, is the Bitcoin on exchanges. We need to keep an eye on this metric. These are absolutely going to start to decline in terms of the value that's on there. And this is why I think you've got people like JP Morgan, you've got people like Wells Fargo getting into the market. They know what's coming. Remember, we are only sat at just under a $61,000 Bitcoin, retested off that 382 earlier today, got rejected, 236 coming into support. Are we now about to see Bitcoin start to push to the upside? We just flicked into a new day here in the UK, so we'll see how that all plays out. But it definitely looks like we may be getting a bit of a relief rally. So what does it mean for you? Ultimately, where does this all play out? Well, I talk a lot about this on my Friday night Twitter space, and that ultimately it's about winning your little piece of the puzzle. It's not necessarily the argument of trying to beat everyone. You're never going to go against JP Morgan. You're never going to go against Wells Fargo. All of these other big institutions aren't going to own you in this space. But if you have the right education, follow the right people, and subscribe to the right channels, you can ultimately make some very interesting gains, especially when you know institutions are coming for Bitcoin. They're coming for these big ETFs. Equally, when you look at leverage on the market, we do feel the market is bearish right now. We're expecting some further pushdowns. If the market reverses, we could see some significant exit of leverage, which could push the price of Bitcoin quite aggressively back up to the upside. But it's going to need some pretty big money. We're going to need to see some pretty big catalysts. And we know it's the weekend, so it's all got to come from retail. But let me know what you think of the whole JP Morgan situation. It's very interesting to know that Jamie Dimon is anti-crypto. He will go on live national news and talk about how useless it is, but at the same time, his company now owning $750,000 of Bitcoin ETFs. Very interesting if you ask me. And if you enjoyed this content, you want to stay up to date with everything going on in this space, hit that subscribe button, turn your notification bell on to all, and I'll see you guys right back here for the next video.